Hello everyone, this is Doomhammer with the 32-team franchise of the 2007-2008 NFL season. This is the recap of the 6-10 Houston Texans, 4th place in the AFC South. The Texans were a fun team to play, as there were certain players that I enjoyed playing with from a long time ago, from Andre Johnson and even just the average Matt Schaub. Here you go, there's Matt Schaub there. He was the 9th ranked quarterback in passing yards with 3,350. Pretty impressive, 34 passing touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and his completion percentage at 66%. And even though Matt Schaub was kind of a solid average quarterback, he did have his moments. He wasn't as clutch as I preferred him to be. There were some times down the stretch that he just wasn't able to get the win. He wasn't able to lead that game-winning drive. But for the most part, he was able to deliver the ball. And as you can see right there, Andre Johnson, who is just an amazing target. I mean, I remember playing with him back in Madden 2008. He's just a very fun receiver to go with. And literally, as you see in many of these highlights, all I had to do was toss the ball up to him. If there was single coverage, there was a good chance that Andre Johnson was able to bring it down like he did just there. Andre Johnson was the 6th ranked wide receiver in total receiving yards with 1,215. He did lead the Houston Texans passing team with 12 receiving touchdowns. And just from his size and strength, I mean, there you go. Another one, just threw it up there and he brought it down. Just an impressive display there. And one of the challenges that the Texans had this year was, I think it was the lack of playmakers, or at least the lack of consistent playmakers. Because aside from Andre Johnson, there was a huge drop in playmaking talent. So as you can see, I mean, Andre Johnson it was hard not to just keep passing it to him. But there needed to be some better options around him. And I love that play right there. You can even see the footprints in the snow in the back of the end zone. Yeah, that left side of the field against the Jaguars was definitely exploited a lot. Now here we go with Jacoby Jones, who was my second best wide receiver out there. Even though he was only a 76 overall, his speed, his size made him a very viable threat, whether it was just the back of the end zone like that or as a deep threat option. And so heading into this next season, I know Johnson and Jones are kind of the main options here as wide receivers, as I will look to try and see if there's a way I can improve on their receiving options. Because again, other than them, yeah, there was Mathis, number 13, that there were a few highlights of him earlier, but not as many dynamic playmakers like Jones or Johnson. As for tight end, Owen Daniels is reliable. As you can see, 667 receiving yards, only 5 touchdowns, but again, he was a young tight end, was reliable. I mean, I did a lot of those corner throw touchdowns. And there's a lot of highlights of Daniels because he was very active. He was a playmaker. I was able to move the ball with him. I tend to like to lean toward my tight ends, and there's one. He's right on the 1 yard line, and then I made sure I gave him the touchdown. Gotta finish it strong. There you go with the spin move, getting around Indianapolis' defense. And this was a game that they won, too, because I'll get to the Indianapolis Colts a little bit later, because their season started off very strong and then took a really sad turn at the end. Now, as for the running game, there's Ahmad Green, and he had 804 yards. He was a very explosive running back. His greatest issue was frequently he was getting injured, so he wasn't always on the field. And when he wasn't on the field, their running game really struggled. I mean, there were a few dynamic moments, but I was working with a third, sometimes even fourth string running back with this Houston Texas team because of his injuries. And so I knew that the Texans really needed to add a playmaker at running back to kind of complement Green so that if for any reason Green goes down or if that other stud running back goes down, they have a decent running attack. So this was a play with, I think it was Wally Lundy, number 33. he had a big dynamic move there. You'll see the clip right after this, and there's a spin move. Or it's just Jacksonville's defense, either way. But he was a decent backup, but he had a few good moments. But when it came down to doing the general workload, it just never worked out for him. And there's the fullback, Vonta Leach, getting his goal line touchdown. So as you can see, their total offense was 22nd, nothing to be too impressed about. They ranked 13th in total passing yards, thanks to Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson. Look at the rushing yards, they're 23rd. Perhaps that would change with a healthy Green. They were 22nd in points per game. And again, when you're scoring that few points, you're not going to win. Defense, they were also not impressive. As you can see there, with the least passing yards allowed, they were 16th. Mediocre, right in the middle of everything. But they were 21st with rushing yards allowed. As for least points allowed, they allowed the 24th most points. So again, that's the recap of the Houston Texans 6-10 season, where they had the 5th overall pick. Thanks for watching. I know there's many more team recaps to come.